we give driver's licenses to anyone here. You don't have to be a citizen. You don't have to, which is a photo ID.
Madam Chair, so the designation on the roster for someone whose registration had been incomplete, if they present the election judge with that acceptable identification document, that would clear the challenge from the roster and they would be permitted to cast a ballot.
So just to clarify, someone who is not a citizen but presents a driver's license at that point in the process could be permitted to vote. Vice Chair Anderson.
Thank you. So we give driver's licenses to anyone here. You don't have to be a citizen. You don't have to, which is a photo ID. So if someone comes in, they register, they have the driver's license, but they have an incorrect social or no social or whatever. So then they become incomplete. But if they walk in to vote with their driver's license, does that make them all of a sudden now okay?
Mr. Linnell.
Madam Chair, so the designation on the roster for someone whose registration had been incomplete, if they present the election judge with that acceptable identification document, that would clear the challenge from the roster and they would be permitted to cast a ballot.
Mr. Anderson.
Well, okay, there's your problem potentially. So thank you.
So just to clarify, someone who is not a citizen but presents a driver's license at that point in the process could be permitted to vote.
Madam Chair, at the time of registration, as well as at the time of submitting a ballot, every voter is signing the attestation affirming their eligibility to vote, including that they meet all eligibility requirements, that they are a U.S. citizen. If it's determined then that the voter was not in fact eligible to vote, that information would be provided to the county attorney for investigation and potential prosecution.
Vice Chair Anderson.
Madam Chair, but if they sign and they say they're eligible to vote and they walk in with a driver's license, even though they're not, because we give driver's licenses to anyone in the state, they can vote if they sign that they're eligible.
Mr. Linnell.
Madam Chair, again, in this scenario where we're talking about a record that has been flagged for the CID requirement, that is the requirement that they must clear under federal law in order to be allowed to vote. It doesn't contemplate a hypothetical where someone is not otherwise eligible to vote. It's to affirm their identity as the voter. It's that they are who they say they are, that it's a match against, again, one of the databases. Ideally, that's done through the number matching with the DPS database or with the Social Security Administration. It is the other elements of being eligible to vote that the voter is attesting to and certifying at the time that they're registering and when they are casting a ballot.
Thank you. So the answer to my question is yes. Under that scenario, someone could, they get their driver's license, again, because we give them to anybody here. They register to vote. It doesn't match with the Social Security number, so they're flagged, but they come in as long as they have an ID, which is that driver's license, and they sign that they're, eligible to vote, they can vote. And they're then no longer flagged. They're on the system. Is that correct?
Mr. Linnell.
Madam Chair, if I could add the, and maybe stepping back from those that are flagged as CID on the roster, for anyone that's presenting documentation to register to vote, that is affirmation of their identity. The driver's license has not been used as proof of citizenship for the purposes of registering to vote. It's affirming that they are who they say they are. So right. In any of these cases where someone were to cast a ballot if they were ineligible to vote, there are also reports that are generated post-election for voters that are challenged that counties will run to show status of voters that had been updated due to the fact that they've now cast a ballot that can be reviewed and referred to the county attorney.
Okay, so the answer is yes to my question. You haven't said it, but is that correct? The answer was?
Secretary Simon.
If I could intervene here, and if I could zoom out a little bit, I just want to make clear that this is not a new issue for Minnesota. For over 100 years, people who have had not only driver's licenses but other form of ID It can be used in an election that does not distinguish between a citizen and a non-citizen. So my mother is a good example. My mother, for over 30 years, was a green card holder. She was driving around Minnesota for decades with a valid driver's license that could have, I suppose, been used for voting. Although the instances of that are just vanishingly rare. It almost never, ever happens. There have been some recent studies about that are Minnesota specifics. But I would just draw your attention to the fact that we have other IDs, not just driver's licenses, that we, I guess, give to everyone that do not make a distinction between citizenship and non. For example, a student ID. No student ID that I've ever seen from any college or university has a marking that shows whether someone's a citizen or not, or a military ID. There is no military ID that I've ever seen that shows a demarcation about whether someone's a citizen or not. So I just wanted us to put this in perspective. Reasonable people in this room can have a different idea about how we ought to do things. That's perfectly fair. But I just want to give a little bit of context that this is not new. As with my mother, this is a decades-old, I would say a century-old issue in Minnesota.
Thank you. Follow-up. Thank you. All right, Mr. Linnell, so sorry to have derailed you here. We look forward to you continuing.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Moving ahead to the second half of that verification process when one registers to vote, which is to confirm that the voter lives where they say they live. So after being registered, a postal verification card, or PVC, is sent to the voter's residential address as a non-forwardable mailing. If the mailing is delivered, the address is confirmed and no further action is taken. If the mailing is returned to the county elections office as undeliverable, the voter record then must be challenged. A second card is then sent after 60 days, and if that card is returned, the voter record is inactivated. There are many reasons why a PVC may be returned, which include incomplete information. For example, if the address provided did not include the apartment unit number for the voter, or the voter is temporarily away from their home address. If the card is returned with a forwarding address, there are procedures in place for how to handle that record. Those include updating the address in the voter's record if the address is within the county, providing the card to another Minnesota county to update the record if the voter's moved to another county in the state, or triggering the process to inactivate the voter record if data indicates that the voter has moved out of state. Additional procedures are required for postal verification cards that are returned for individuals registering on Election Day that I'll touch on later.
I'm sorry, I have one more question.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about this because this happened in my household. So we received voter absentee application form for the previous owners of my home, who I happen to know. And I returned it. The homeowner, got it, and I did not fill it out. I returned it and said, no longer here, or whatever I put on the envelope, and stuck it back in the mailbox. So is it incumbent on the people living in the residence, when they get those things, to return it if it's not caught in the mail system already? And the example I want to bring up is there was a case last year where indeed a woman got in Itasca County a ballot for her mother who had died, and she filled it out. So is it incumbent on the people who get these things in their home to return it? Or what is the process for making sure that all this postal verification is rock solid? Thank you.
Madam Chair, thank you for the question. There are the technical ways in which the card is flagged as non-forwardable. So if the USPS cannot deliver it, it will be returned, and they'll often have the stickers on it indicating the reason why the card was returned. But certainly if a card is delivered to a residence and the information does not correspond to who is living there, we would encourage the homeowner, the resident, to reach out to the county elections office, provide them with information about the card they received. It's possible that it was delivered to the wrong address, or to your point, if it was a previous resident and the information may be out of date, to provide that to the county elections office so they can take a look at that record and determine if any updates may need to be made based on that information.